So now we can get into the outlining, and you are going to need a note card for this. So I have my note card here. I'm not sure if you could read that, but it says at the top, idea in all caps, and then I have premise, character, and theme. Those are the three things you need to figure out before you can start outlining a story. You need to have a premise, you need to have a character, and you need to have a theme. So let's break those down. So the first thing is your premise. Your premise is the concept of the story, or the basic arc of the story. Why is this story even happening? Something needs to be taking place, and something needs to carry through the entire story for that story to even exist. So your premise can be saving someone. Your premise can be defeating a bad guy. Your premise can be going on an adventure. It needs to be something that anyone can understand as a story. And I would recommend this be something simple, something that is easy to understand and easy to follow, because we want to start with little simple elements, and then we can explore how to expand those elements and make it into an actually good idea. So for my story, my premise, I'm going to go with something simple. I'm going to say someone is going to fight a bad guy and save somebody, all right? So that is my basic premise. It is just an easy to understand concept, something that will carry through the entire story. There's going to be a character that fights a bad guy, and in the end, he's going to save someone else. That's my main idea. That is the basic idea I'm running with. The next thing, we need a character. We need someone who is fitting for someone who should fight a bad guy and save someone in the end. And you may not have all the details on your character right now, but try to think of someone who is interesting to fit that premise. A lot of times, someone who is unfitting for that premise is a good choice, or someone that seems like they should be fitting, but isn't, because contrast is something you want weaved into your story over and over throughout all of your elements. So your character should contrast or almost seem like he is contradicting his position in the story or in the premise. So my character is going to be a lowly servant boy. So now we have our main character. It is a poor servant boy that I've chosen for this story. And as you can see in my premise, I actually mention a bad guy and someone is saved in the end. So I need to have two more characters that I can start with. So we have our lowly servant boy. Now we need to think of a bad guy. And I think my bad guy is going to be an evil minotaur. So now I have my bad guy and my main character, or my hero in the story. Now let's talk about who he's going to save. There's a third person in my premise, so I'm going to have him save, how about a princess? He's going to save the princess of the land. So now our premise starts to make a little more sense. We have a servant boy fights an evil minotaur and saves a princess. That is the premise of my story, now more defined because I have three characters that are fitting for this. And again, you don't have to have all of this explained yet. You can always go back and change this. Just have the basics down. You know, I could have a knight in shining armor fights a bad guy that's a minotaur and saves the princess. I could change this altogether and make it something crazy, like a thief fights a king and saves the queen. You know, it could be something like that. And it's okay to make things seem complex or impossible, because when you almost contradict yourself in your story, you're creating a lot of contrast. You're creating things that seem interesting, that can prick the ears of your readers and make them think, I've never heard a story told that way. So try to pick characters that are unique for the premise you are building. And then lastly, I need a theme that is going to go through this story. So your theme is basically the element that you are teaching your reader throughout the story. It is often a moral or underlying truth that is hidden and weaved between the lines and seen come to life as the story progresses. Some basic themes could be things like love conquers all, or good versus evil, different things like that. But for my theme, I think I'm going to go with hope and redemption. I want to show that this poor servant boy, who is probably most unlikely to ever save this princess, can change into a man and show that there is hope for her to be saved when everything seemed like it was all lost. Hope was all lost. And this will be a redemption arc, because I think I'm going to carry in there that this servant boy needs to redeem himself. He needs to redeem his identity because possibly he's believing all the mockery and the hatred of the people from the town that don't believe in him, and he needs to prove them all wrong, but he also needs to prove himself wrong because he's starting to believe the lies. So I kind of want to play with hope and redemption in this story. So now our idea is starting to really come to life. We have a servant boy who is going to fight a minotaur, and he is going to save a princess, and he is going to, through it all, show that there is hope and that there is redemption for himself and for her, basically. So that is my story idea. I hope that explains well how you can create a story idea nice and easily. I'm going to do another one just to show an example of something that is more modern day and not like a medieval fantasy story like I've created here. So let's say I want to create, a modern day realistic crime thriller, right? So for this premise, I just came up with a cop stops a serial killer before taking his final victim. So again, I actually have 3 characters once again, but now I need to explain who these characters are or have a basic idea of who they can be. So for the characters, I came up with a rookie and klutzy cop. Maybe he's new in the area, new on the block. He just graduated from the academy, barely sliding through, and he is just an awful cop. We'll show that in the beginning, he's a klutz, right? And then we have, for our serial killer, I have a serial killer that has been on the run for years. Maybe he's been making a mockery of the cops. Maybe he has like a kill tag or something that he leaves behind showing that he was the murderer at every single time he kills someone, and he always gets away with it. Perhaps he has been caught or almost caught multiple times, or maybe he's been caught once and escaped, different things like that. And then for the final victim, I have the rookie's partner and mentor. So perhaps in the beginning of the story, we could show this mentor helping prepare this rookie for the real world and what it's like to be a cop. And then out of nowhere, disaster strikes, and the rookie's partner is the one who is taken by the serial killer, and the serial killer maybe leaves a note or something that lets everyone on this police force know that he was the one who took this cop, and basically he's going to kill him if they can't solve a riddle or find him in the next 7 days or something. So now our premise has expanded just slightly because we have a character involved, and that is now we have a rookie stops a serial killer that's been on the run for years before taking his final victim, which is his partner and mentor. And for the themes of this story, I think friendship would be fitting because obviously this is a good friend of our rookie cop. He just lost his partner and his mentor. And then good versus evil, which is kind of obvious just because, it's a good versus evil type of story. And then lastly, I have identity because I think that this rookie cop is going to be struggling with discovering who he really is and really laying hold of being a cop. Maybe no one believes in him. Maybe it was his fault all along that his partner got taken and swooped away by the serial killer or whatever it is, and he is struggling with finding out who he truly is and wondering if his destiny, his purpose really is in the police force or if he chose the wrong career. So that's a second story I've done. Let's do one more, and maybe this time I won't have three characters again. So for this third and final story idea, for the premise, I've started with a boy and girl fall in love during high school. So something super simple, something very basic and understandable. So for our characters, I simply have, our boy's name is Sam, and he is nerdy, bullied, and lonely. And then for our girl, I have Katie, who is popular and rich. So they're contrasting characters, an unexpected pair, and that will make for an interesting and dramatic story. So now we have Sam, who is nerdy, bullied, and lonely, falls in love with Katie, who is popular and rich during high school. And then for our themes for this story, obviously one of them is going to be love. I also can see that identity might be one of them, finding out who we truly are and seeing people for who they truly are. And then lastly, I thought beauty would be fitting because perhaps this popular girl needs to realize that beauty comes from within. And maybe same with Sam. Maybe Sam doesn't see the beauty within himself and does not see the beauty within this girl, Katie, whatsoever. So those are just my ideas for the theme thus far. So now we have this love story that's about identity and understanding beauty with Sam and Katie. Sam, which are polar opposites. Sam is, bullied and nerdy, and Katie is popular and rich, and they are going to fall in love during high school. So that is just a third and final story idea for you guys. So I hope that kind of explains how you can have a story idea and how to set it up. And it's super helpful having this on note cards just so you can visualize it and see it, and then re-record it on the computer. Maybe on the computer when you write it, you start expanding it out and explaining it a little more during your brainstorming, which is actually what we're probably going to get into next. But yeah, hopefully this helps with starting your story idea. You need to think of a premise, so think of something very basic, very easy to start with. If it helps, go watch some movies, go read some summaries to books or movies, and think of something that interests you. Think of something that you think is a good idea to start with, whether it's a love story, whether it's some kind of crime or thriller or horror story or whatever it is. Try to think of something that ignites the creative fire inside of you. And then try to fit some characters in there that can either be causing a polarity with the premise itself or causing a polarity with one another. Maybe these characters are totally opposites and they have to work together, whatever it is. And then you need to have a theme, an underlying tone that is taught through the story and seen throughout the scenes, and it's carried through the story until the end and you see it come to fruition. So those are the 3 basics of starting with a story idea. Hopefully that is beneficial, and hopefully that helps you get your story idea started. So now I want you to try and write your story idea.